Hey everyone, this is Resting Witchface Tarot, and I am here with a tag for you, the Date the Tarot tag. So without much ado, I'm going to get right into it. Oh, and by the way, I will be doing both tarot and oracle for the prompts that I do feel that I have an oracle that is appropriate for that. So the first one is the Cheapskate Date. Who did you date because they were cheap as chips, and what was the outcome? So it's going to have to be the Lightseers Tarot for me. I ended up getting this on sale for about $9.99. Everyone was talking about this, so because it was so cheap, I decided to pick it up. And it's a good little deck. It's definitely not in my favorites because, I mean, everyone here looks like they're, these beautiful Coachella people, and I prefer a little bit more age and body diversity in my decks. But it is a beautiful deck. It reads really well. And yeah, I mean, it's a good deck. It's a good reader. It's one of the favorites when I read for other people. It's not something that I personally resonate with my own practice, but it's a good deck. It's Rider-Waite-Smith. There's not much bad that I can say about it. It has really great cardstock. And for the Oracle offering, I have the Fairy Forest Oracle. Once again, got it on sale for about $9.99. I trimmed and edged my copy in shades of green, and I took off the giant blue angel borders. But this is one of my favorites. I like to pair this with the Wildwood Tarot, and it also pairs really well with both the Mystic Fairy Tarot, Tarot of the Hidden Realms, and the Arthurian Tarot. The messages that it has are really clear. It is obviously fae-based, and this was kind of a dark horse for me. I saw this, I was like, oh, it's gonna be, pretty fairies. But there's just something about the guidebook and the information that makes these characters seem like real people that I just love. So this was definitely a date that worked out well for me, because it's become one of my favorites. Now, the second prompt for this is the Slow Burner Date, the one you weren't really sure about when you first met, but over time you suspect that it's going to be love. So this is a deck that was on my shelf for months before I ever, felt called to take it out. The Saussurai Beto Tarot. And I mean, I knew that it would be a nice deck. It's independent. It has like very simple artwork on it, and it's really relatable. It took me a while. I don't know why these are all reversed, because I don't read reversals. But this is real life, people. It seemed simple at first blush, but after working with it for a while, it has become a very integral part of my practice and my business to be reading with these. Like, some of these cards are portrayed in such a way that really speaks to me. it just took me a little while to kind of decide to tune into the wisdom that this particular deck had. And that is the Souster Ibido Tarot, the Slow Burn. I don't have an oracle deck for this one, but I do for the next one. So the next tag is the Blind Date. This was one that we picked up because we were impulsive humans and we just kind of rush in. So for tarot, for me, it has to be the Antique Anatomy Tarot. I saw Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot with this, and for me, it just kind of spoke. I literally stopped the video like a quarter of the way through. I stopped it about a quarter of the way through, and I had to get it. I've been doing a little bit of a study on this deck, so that's why it's in order. But I saw the flowers and the bones, and it was just something that I had to get, something that definitely resonated. Persephone is one of the goddesses that I work with a lot, and one that I have worked with since the aughts, when I first really started getting into witchcraft and the tarot space. And I don't use this particular deck for clients, but it's one that I just saw, like the flowers with, you know, either the knives or the bones, and it just called to me. I had only seen a couple cards, and this is one that I have an inkling that I will be using in the spring a lot, just to kind of tap into that Persephone energy in the spring, when, you know, she comes back to walk the earth with her mother. I'm really excited about this deck. And the next one is an oracle that basically I saw, and I recognized the name, the Miss of Avalon Oracle. And I was just perusing Amazon, and I just typed in oracles, and this came up. I loved the books as a girl. I loved the books when I was a girl, and I had collected the entire series. And this deck for me has been really forthcoming. I have been using reversals with this particular one. But just relating these cards back to the book and remembering all of these characters. I didn't even look through walkthroughs. I didn't know anything about this deck. But this is one, again, that I use in my personal practice. And I feel that knowing the books really brings this particular oracle to life. And that was the Miss of Avalon Oracle. The next prompt is the Rebound Date. It's the one that you keep going back to, like you want to break up with it, but you just keep on getting pulled back together. And this is going to shock a lot of you, but it's the Bone Stone, an Earthflesh Tarot by Avalon Cameron. I was one of the few people that got to pick this up on Etsy, and I didn't know about this. I didn't know anything about this particular tarot. This is actually one of the first ones that I picked up when I started really kind of getting into TarotTube. And when I saw that it had dropped, I knew that I was going to pick it up. But COVID happened. And I started seeing people selling this deck for $700 on eBay. And for me, I really wrestled with myself on selling this deck. You know, COVID has not been kind to a lot of people. And I thought, you know, what is a tarot deck? You know, if people are willing to buy it and people need this in their lives, then why shouldn't I sell it? But then I actually started working with it. And look at that, High Priestess. And at that point, everything kind of changed for me, because after reading the guidebook and actually working with this deck, I couldn't let it go. And even since working with it and loving it, you know, there's a part of me that keeps on saying, like, hey, you know, you could be getting a lot of money for this. Like, that's, you know, most of my mortgage. That's a month's payment on my mortgage. But I just don't, because I can't. This deck is so poignant and it has so much wisdom. And I just keep on coming back to it. I keep on trying to convince myself that, you know, that it would be better, and my heart just won't let me. And that is the Rebound that I keep on coming back to. The next prompt is the Surprise Love Affair. This is the one that you thought would be just okay from first meeting, but it just took you by surprise. And for me, I have two. So the first one is the Tarot Fauna. I thought that this was going to be just like another standard RWS, but with animals. You know, everybody knows the RWS, everybody loves it. But there's just something about this deck that is so beautiful and soulful. And I love these little creatures. The cups are the shells, and it's this little otter family. And the feathers is this owl family. The pentacles is rocks, which follows these bears. And the wands is foxes. And really, out of that lineup, the only two animals that I really love truly are bears and owls. And I was just like, I'll pick it up. But when you look more closely, like, this is a great example. When you look more closely, like, you can just see all of the emotion in their little faces. And once again, it just grew on me, and I was taken by surprise so much. The cardstock is really good. It's kind of like a satin, which I love. And it's not glossy. The moment I got this in my hands, I knew that this deck was so much more than I ever dreamed that it would be. And this is the Tarot Fauna. The other one for that is the Elemental Wisdom Tarot. I got the matte version, of course. card doesn't want to come out. Ah. But once again, I thought it was gonna be like just another Rider-Waite-Smith clone. But the colors, I haven't done many videos yet, so most of you don't know me, but I'm not really a ooh pretty colors kind of a person. I am very much like monochrome. I like wearing black and gray, and just like dark colors really suit me. But when I started going through this deck, it definitely was so much more than what met the eye when I was just flipping through it online and debating on whether to pick this up. The stock is one of my favorites. I have an overhead ceiling light. Sometimes that gets in the way of doing readings when I'm doing them online, when I'm doing my distance readings, because can't do them in person anymore because of COVID, and I'm high risk, so I can't leave the house really. So I've been moving all of my readings online, and this deck has been such a joy to work with. And when I picked it up, I didn't think it was going to be as good as it is. It's one of my favorite decks. I would say definitely in the top 10, probably within the top 5. And I just was taken so surprised by this deck. And once again, that is the Elemental Wisdom Tarot. The next prompt that we have is the Not My Type date. So this is the one that you went on this date thinking that it wasn't your cup of tea, but something happened. And for me, that's the soul cards. Once again, I'm usually, black and gold, black and silver. But when I first started really looking at, Tarogram and Tarot Tube, I saw this in passing. And I was like, it'll make some pretty Instagram photos, right? And then I started using it. And it's really kind of been growing on me. I thought this was just going to be, a pretty, kind of sigil-y thing to put on Instagram. But I really like it. I just, I did a flip through of this, so that's why everything's in order. So flip through of this to come. But the cardstock is so good. It has the rose petal finish. The backings are absolutely beautiful. And for me, it's been really helping my intuition when I have this all mixed up as a working deck, because I've been reading Rider-Waite-Smith for 20 years, and I never really got into the Thoth or Marseille or anything like that. But having these kinds of pip and sigil-y looking things to kind of stretch myself and be like, okay, so what is this trying to tell me? What is, what is energetically the Page of Pentacles to me? The movement and the way that this is looking. What energetically to me does the Five of Pentacles say? And, I had bought this as, something to be hashtag aesthetic, but it's really helped me as a reader and in my own spiritual practice to kind of tune more into myself. The other part of that equation is the Oracle, the Fairy Tale Oracle. This is the opposite of any kind of oracle that I would have considered myself to be attracted to. These cards are like super glossy. I don't know if that's even picking up on camera because I'm doing the natural light thing today. But it has these giant borders. Like, Jasmine Beckett Griffith's art is not my cup of tea at all. With these like big-eyed girls, like it's just not my thing. But the people who I most respect in the community kept on talking about this. Like Owl Moon 513, she keeps on talking about this deck, and I was just like, okay, what the hell? And you know what? Those people who like this deck, despite like the big-eyed girl artwork, they're right. This deck is so accurate and so deep, just knowing the fairy tales that come along with it, and, you know, in the beginning, using the guidebook to really stretch. This deck has never, ever failed to tell me what people's motivations have been in a particular situation. This deck has always been right on the money in telling me what kind of situation I'm going to be heading in, or what kind of deeper meaning that the relationships in my life have, especially the platonic ones, I've noticed. So this was so surprising to me, and it's totally not my thing. I wouldn't say that it's ugly, but it's not something that I would be attracted to. And it just surpassed every expectation. So the point of this story, I guess, is, you know, if you have an aversion to a certain deck, there's probably a reason for that, and that reason has more to do with you than it does the deck, and that deck probably has a lot of wisdom for you. Because that's what I found. The next one is the I may have to delete your number date. It's the one that it doesn't really work for you, but you just can't break up. And for me, for tarot, that is going to be the Accurate AF Tarot. This tarot is beautiful. It is definitely my style. Trying to get it out of the tin is really hard though. You know, look at it. It's very monochrome and airy. And I had never had a round deck before. And it's just beautiful. But the reason why I need to delete this is because it's bigger than my hand. Even just one card, I can barely get my hands around it. And trying to hold it and shuffle it is kind of a nightmare. It is so beautiful, but it's so big. Like, I can't. And in my mind, like, I know that I should probably get rid of this deck. It doesn't work for me. It's too big. It's way too big. And look at that fool. It's so pretty. And I think that that's the reason why I just can't let go. And, you know, it's beautiful. It has the gilding. It has little keywords at the bottom. It's very soft and very, you know, like that, as I was saying before, like that beautiful monochrome. And it's watery. I love this deck, but it's unusable for me. I can't use it. And I should probably delete the number from my phone. I probably should, but I just can't quit you. So if the creator is watching this, I really want a smaller version, because with this, like, you can't even trim it, because then you'd lose, you know, like all the gilding, and you'd lose the keywords. And I don't think that I would be able to use this without the labels personally. Oh, look at that. It's so pretty. But I can't shuffle it. I can't get my hands around it. I am 4'11", and it just doesn't work. The next one, which is an oracle, and I've even modified this oracle, okay? So I call it the Work Your Starseed Oracle, because it is both the Work Your Light and Starseed Oracle combined. This deck is beautiful, and looking at it, it's everything that I would want. It has like these beautiful pastels. It has these really great keywords down at the bottom. But A, I don't identify as a starseed, and B, I don't think that I have read into the whole starseed phenomenon enough to really get out of these cards what I should be. Like, there are some of these, like Inner Earth, I get that. You know, you're already doing it. Stop overthinking. I get that. But, like, there are a couple of them, like, where are they? I think I even took them out. The ones that have, like, Pleiades energy and stuff like that. Like, I don't get it. Like, this very much to me feels like the Tower. I get that. But there's just something that I don't resonate with. And it makes me so mad because it's beautiful, and I've tried splitting these decks up. I've tried combining them in ways in an attempt to get them to make sense to me and the way that I connect. But it doesn't work for me, and it makes me angry, and I keep on trying. And I guess that's the definition of insanity, right? Like, you keep on trying to do something that doesn't work for you. And I don't get any intuitive hits off of this, and it should, because it's beautiful, and I really love the artwork. And I've had this for months, and I should just probably lose this number. I should probably, like, try to trade this or sell this and put it back together, you know, and separate them out. But the thing that's keeping me from doing that is definitely that artwork. And I just can't. I can't bring myself to do it, even though it's mass market. Maybe by making this, it'll push me into that, right? So the next one is the Forever Love. And this deck. So this isn't my original first deck, but this in a different physical deck is the first deck I ever had, and it is the Mythic Tarot. And I have been working with this deck, well, but not this particular deck, but you know what I mean, since 1997, when I first started getting into tarot. And my mother, who has passed, gave me this deck for Christmas when I first kind of started giving her like those inklings that I was a witch and not, you know, a Christian like the rest of the family. And this is my forever love. I have 4 backups of this deck because I never want to be without it. The stock is paper thin, it's not laminated, it picks up glare. This is a trimmed copy. I have another copy that I didn't trim over here that I haven't worked with yet. So this is what it looks like with the borders, but this one came to me secondhand, and there was brown stuff like all over the borders. And when you're looking at sticky brown residue on a secondhand deck, you don't want to deal with that. I tried like taking it off with a damp washcloth, and they wouldn't go away. So I decided to trim this down to just the artwork, because I know this deck like the back of my hand. I've been working with it since, as I said, 1997. And this deck will always be my forever love. I don't have enough nice, beautiful things to say about this. For those of you who don't know, there are 2 versions of this deck out. This is the Mythic Tarot, and they also have the new Mythic Tarot out, which the artwork is the same, but it's just slightly different because it's by a different illustrator. And I won't go into the controversy surrounding that, but if you go into, like a tarot group, you can look up the controversies that happened between those 2. And I just look at her. This is the Empress. Just, this deck to me is everything, and it reminds me of my mother. And I have so many backups, and I will never stop using this deck. So that is your forever true love. The next prompt, I actually have 2 tarot for, and I know I'm such a cheater when it comes to these tags, but we'll deal with this. I have a Gemini sun, and I'm terrible at making up my mind. So this is the Wayward Dark Tarot. And this is the one that she says that you can't stay away from. It's equal parts passion, lust, and fighting. And it's one that you have to take breaks away from, but you can't stay away forever. And this is the Wayward Dark. Some of you might find this deck disturbing, but I think that that's why I have such a love-hate relationship with it. It is a Thoth-based deck, and it feels very masculine to me. It has all of the elements of things that I should be attracted to, other than this glossy stock that I hate. But the gray and the white and the black with the keywords at the bottom, it should be everything. But because most of my training and most of my experience is with the Rider-Waite-Smith system, I find this deck hard to connect with. And this is something that I'm in 2021 or 2022, I really want to do a depth year with this, and to really get to know this deck and this system in general. But it is so beautiful, and it has like these sacred geometry, but for some reason I love this deck, but it stretches me so much, and it puts me so outside of my comfort zone being an RWS reader and kind of dipping my toe into that Thoth system. It's intimidating. And, as a Gemini, I don't like to feel stupid. And I think that that's one of the things. When I go into that Thoth system, I feel stupid. And I guess that has more to do with me than it does the system itself. But I see some of like these esoteric symbols, and I am not someone who's like afraid of esoterica, But this, to me, is an intimidating ass deck. And I should give it more love than I do. But it's just, even though it's definitely my aesthetic and I love it, I also kind of hate it at the same time. But I really feel that once we do, get into that real relationship with each other, we'll get on. But right now it's just not there. And the second one for this particular tag is the Lily White Tarot. This is a tarot that I had to have it. And this is the second printing. Have my little authenticity card. And it's, again, one of those decks that it's equal parts passion and, not wanting to have anything to do with it. This deck is beautiful. And it has like these watercolors that I thought would be, like very nurturing. This is one of my favorite cards. This is one of the reasons why I bought this deck. But you can kind of tell in the court cards, it's very different. And the reason why I don't use this deck as much as I would like to is the pages. Let's see if I can find a page. Maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. This is beautiful. Of course, it's going to be like the last one that I pull up, right? Well, at least you guys are getting a good look at this deck. This is a queen. Okay. Here we go. Like, I don't know, there's just something weird about their faces that, I don't know, it's beautiful, but it's also off-putting. And in the people cards in particular, like these are both kings, and there's just something about the way that they stare at you that I have a problem with. And shouldn't have, half these are turned over and half aren't. Good job. But it's something that I don't have a problem with in a deck like the Tarot of the Hidden Realm, where, a lot of times those characters are staring at you right in your face. But for some reason with the watercolors, like them looking directly at my face just kind of feels weird. I don't know. I feel like it's a deck that I need to get into a little more, but those pages are just very off-putting to me. With characters like this, when they're looking away, I don't have a problem with that. And I think it's beautiful, but like, I don't know, like, just looks like it's staring at me, and I don't like that. It could be because I'm not neurotypical, and eye contact for me is hard. And with the Tarot of the Hidden Realms, those are fey creatures. Those are energetic. But these very much look like normal people to me. And I just can't deal with them, like, staring at me directly in the face. And so that was the second to last tag. So the last prompt is the Friends with Benefits date. This is the one who you can run to without commitment, who you just when you need them, you can take them out and then they can go right back on the shelf for any length of time. And then when you need them again, just pull them back and it's like no time has passed. So I'm going to start with the Oracle deck because the tarot for this is one that's really close to my heart, and that's the one that I want to end on. So the Oracle for this prompt is the Divine Circus Oracle. This is one that I have trimmed myself, and I edged it in a bright coral. Before trimming, it had the typical blue angel borders. It's glossy, which isn't my favorite. They came out with a new printing of this that's borderless and matte, but you lose, you know, kind of the circus theming, like with the big top on the back. It just has one of the cards as a card back. So I don't, as much as I love matte more than glossy, I'm not going to get rid of this anytime soon. But this deck, the Divine Circus, is one that I don't call on often, but it's one that I can take right off the shelf after being with it, or leaving it rather, on the shelf for weeks, sometimes even months. And when I pull it back out, it's like seeing a new friend. It's like seeing an old friend. And it's like coming back home. This deck is one that I use a lot for like deep personal work. And I also use it for readings for other people because it has you know, a little bit of a shadow work, deep inner work way about it. And when I was first using it, the guidebook had like these healing tricks and affirmations that I loved using. But it's one that I can very much dive into a little too deeply, and I can get lost in the shadow work of this. Like, for me, these cards are so easy to kind of get lost in that message, so I have to use it very sparingly, or else I just get carried away with that shadow work a little too much. And it's one that's just like coming home from a vacation. You're like, oh, it's my home. You know, going on vacation and seeing new things is great, but sometimes the best part of the vacation is when you're coming home and you're back to your routine. Does that make any sense to anybody else? And the tarot for this is a new, well, it's kind of new. It's a newer deck to my collection, and it is the United States of Tarot. And for me, this feels a lot like the Divine Circus Oracle, in that I can just go so deep with this. And it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. It is a little bit of a political deck because it has figures from history. It has current, oh, here we go. Like, it has people that you recognize from the news. And I can just go very deep with this to the point that I lose myself. So I have to put this back on the shelf and take a break from it. It is very glossy. The cardstock is a little bit on the thicker side. But this deck is one that I can very easily lose myself in the messages in. And it's not an everyday reader for me. I have to use this for, you know, those big questions. And if I don't save it for the big questions, if I'm pulling this out for every, you know, will he call me type of reading, then I just get so fatigued. But really kind of saving this for the big questions in life, the big, you know, diving deep into myself and diving deep into the heart of questions. It's just so good. And I feel that this is one of like my favorite decks. This is another one that easily can go, you know, top 10 easily, maybe even top 5, because I know these people. Like, these are all people who, you know, I relate to this. These are all events that, you know, I either lived through or know people who have lived through this. And it's part of my history as an American. And I can't just use this willy-nilly. It's beautiful. And this deck to me is like everything. I know that some people will find it, you know, not to their taste because of, you know, of what it represents to them. But to me, this deck is, I don't want to say that it's a shadow work deck, because to me, any deck can be a shadow work deck, right? It's all about your connection to that deck. But this deck for me, just, I can't use it all the time, but it's everything when I have those types of deep hitting things that I need answers on. And this is one that I find myself just coming back to, and it's always there for me. So I hope that this was enjoyable for you. I had a lot of fun selecting these decks for the prompts and really kind of sinking my teeth into it. Hopefully this is a good little introduction to the content that you will hopefully see on my channel. Okay, well, thank you for coming, and I hope to see you again soon.